Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Annie from Bloom. If you haven't done so already and are interested, please consider subscribing where I will teach you everything you need to know about how to block print from home. So in today's video, I want to teach you how to make your own custom color palettes for your block prints. So let's go outside and get some color ideas. Okay, we're in my backyard, which is one of my favorite places to look for color and design ideas, and Louie, my dog, our dog he's gonna help us. So since I carved a tulip, I thought it would be really nice to check out my little tulip garden to see if there's some colors that would work well for our stamp. But you guys, check this out. Look inside of this tulip. Can you see it? It is a crab spider, a white crab spider. It's covered in pollen, and it eats honeybees. And you can see a couple of honeybees, some dead honeybees inside there. Isn't that just amazing? Ooh, looks like there's there's an aphid or something inside there. So the ideas that I was thinking of for my tulip was, I really liked a kind of a purplish pink color, and I don't have it in bloom anymore, but I still have some of the petals. So I kind of thought about making my tulip print this color. So I'm going to take one of these petals with me. Hi, welcome back from the garden. We have our spent tulip petal here that's going to be a guide for us while we try to match this color. This is my favorite subject. I love color. I love making colors. I don't think you can ever have too many colors. I used to do this really weird thing in high school. I still do it a little bit, but not quite as much, where a feeling or a person or just an event, usually for me, will have a color associated with it. So for me, happiness is always yellow. Anxiety is usually red. Something really unique and interesting is like a turquoise or an aqua. And like I said, a lot of people have colors. So my mom is yellow, and my sweet husband is blue, and he's specifically this blue. And I've actually named this color that I created Colin Blue after him. I keep all my colors on these really nice metal rings. I have two palettes here. I have a working palette. So this is the one that I use for most of my prints, and the colors match really nicely together, and they just go together well. And then I have this other palette that I kind of, draw from if I feel like I need a different color, or I just, want to kind of continue to build off of these. So like I said, I don't think you can ever have too many colors. So let's talk about just the basic supplies that you're going to need to make your custom color palette. The first thing, the most important thing, is obviously ink. So I talk all about these inks in my first video, basic supplies. And this is the Speedball screen printing water-based ink. And the colors that you're going to need are the black, white, green, processed magenta, blue, yellow, and red. Once you have all of these colors, you will be able to create any color that you want. The next thing that you absolutely must have is a digital kitchen scale. I've had this scale forever, and I use it to make all of my colors. And then of course a piece of plexiglass. And then these palette knives are really, really great. So I got these in a set. I will provide the link below. And the one that's most important is this flat-topped palette knife. But this came in a set, so you get all of these. And these other ones are really great for taking paint out of the container. Then you're gonna need your foam roller, a sponge brush, some fabric to test your stamp and your colors out on. For cleanup, an old kitchen towel and a water bottle. This is also going to be used to dilute the paints if necessary. And then of course, just something to write with to keep track of how much paint that you're putting on the scale. Okay, let's get going. I just want to make a note about how to store your paint. These glass baby food jars work really, really well. There's also these little plastic makeup containers that are also helpful. I actually prefer the glass jar because I think it seals better. Okay, let's get started mixing our color. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is take a look at your color sample. And in this case, it's our PETAL. And we can see that it's a purplish color. So I know from that I'm going to be using some red and some blue. And because it's a little bit lighter, it's going to have some white in it. So I know that those are the colors I'm going to be starting with. So we have two reds. We have a processed magenta and a red. And the red is a warm red. It looks like it probably has some yellow in it. The processed magenta, on the other hand, is a cool red, and it looks like it leans a little bit more towards the blue spectrum. So just by looking at my PETAL, I know that this is more of a cooler color. So I'm going to start with the processed magenta. And what you want to do is go ahead and turn on your scale and make sure it's in the ounces measurement. And we're going to be using small quantities of paint. We're not going to be using large quantities because you can always double or triple your recipe after you've made it to give you more paint. But when we start, I usually don't like to make a ton of paint because I'm not even sure I'm going to be happy with the color. So let's start off by using 0.100 of processed magenta. So we'll go ahead and put this on our tray. That's on our scale. And I'm going to start there. You can see. Okay, I'm a little bit over, so I'm going to use this nice palette knife to, we're at 99, we're really close. There we go. It's kind of bouncing between 0.099 and 0.1. So there we go. We have 0.1 of processed magenta. So make sure you write that number down before you continue. And make sure I write down ounces. So there you go. And then I'm gonna press the scale and make it go back to 0. And the next color I'm gonna use is some blue because I want to make it purple. Make sure you shake your paints really well too before you start using them. I use these so frequently that I don't need to shake them very much. So I'm just gonna clean off my palette knife. And I'm just gonna add a little bit of blue. So, because this is already a cooler red, so I'm gonna try adding 0.004 ounces of blue. And then seeing how that looks. Sometimes when you work in really small quantities, like 0.001 or 2, it's really hard for the scale to register it. So let's see if it'll allow me. There we go. And it's kind of bouncing back and forth between 4 and 3. Sometimes it requires a lot of patience. There we go. 0.004 ounces. Make sure you write that down. Okay. And then I'm going to mix these two and see what it looks like. So I definitely am thinking I'm going to need to add a bunch of white. And I am going to start off by adding probably double the amount of white that I did with the magenta. So the processed magenta, I added 0.100 ounces. I'm going to add 0.200 ounces. So 0.2 ounces. So set it back to 0 if it isn't already. And here's my white. Shake this up. The white is a very thick color. A little bit of this actually goes a long way. So let me clean off my palette knives here. And then let's toss on some white. And I do not like to put my colors on top of each other because once I have my recipe, let's say I add in a little bit too much, I want to be able to remove some of that color without having it be mixed in with the other colors. So I always try to find a clean spot on the tray to add in the color. So we're going to go ahead and add in 0.2 ounces of white. There we go, getting close. 4. Okay, it's a little bit much. 82. I don't know if you guys can see the color or the numbers bouncing around on my scale. There we go, 0.2. 0.2 ounces. So make sure you write that down on your paper. 0.2. And I always just carry the, so there's 3 decimal places after the point. And so I just carry it all the way through because it helps me keep track. Especially if you have really small quantities up here. So this is how I write down my numbers. All right, I'm just going to do the same exact thing and mix this all together. So this color is actually looking pretty good. So, but you can see that this is still quite a bit darker than this. This is definitely lighter. So I want to go ahead and add in a touch of black. Remember, set the scale back to 0. And I'm going to add probably 0.002 ounces of black. A little bit of black goes a long way. Make sure that's 0. Okay. All right, and then we'll just mix it up. So now I'm looking at the color, and it's definitely matching closer to this part of the petal. So I like that. So now I'm trying to figure out if I like this part of the petal or if I like it a little bit darker up here. And I kind of think I want to use a color that's somewhere in between. Let's test it out on a piece of paper first. So go ahead and get a scrap piece of paper. Oh yeah, and also write down how much black you put in. Don't forget that. So I put in 0.002 ounces of black. And then I can just use this or another sheet. I've already got paint all over my hands. So I'm just gonna take a tiny bit of the paint and kind of just rub it onto the paper. And to be honest, I think I'm actually fairly happy with that color. It is similar. But like I said, you decide if you want it to be a little bit more, a little darker, a little bit lighter. I kind of like it. I'm sort of wondering if I should just experiment with it a little bit more, cool it off a bit. Maybe put in a little bit more processed magenta or possibly a little bit more blue if I want to darken it. But let's try adding in just a touch bit more of the processed magenta. So what we're going to do is make sure, turn your scale back to 0, and we'll go ahead and get the processed magenta, clean off a nice little area, and I think I'm going to add maybe 0.010, so 0.010. Let's get a clean, there we go. Just add in a little bit more processed magenta. Okay, record that number, and I would just kind of show it right here, and I would just add, paint all over my hands, kind of just add it in, 0.010. Okay, keep track of that. I'm going to go ahead and mix this in. So that kind of brightened the color a little bit. And now that I'm looking at it, I think it needs a touch bit more of the blue. And we're going to go ahead and add in 0.004 ounces. Let's start there. So I have to make sure I write that down. 4, there we go. And now let's mix this in. Okay, I've definitely cooled the color off a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and test it out underneath this other color. And you can see it's a little bit cooler. So I think I'm liking that slightly cooler color. It's definitely matching a little bit more with the coolness at the base of the petal that I kind of like. So I think I'm going to keep this color. And you know what I'm going to name it? I'm going to name it Petal. And then I also do want to check it out on some fabric. So I can just take a little scrap piece of fabric here, make sure it's all nice and mixed in, and then just kind of blot it on to the fabric. Now remember, the color is going to dry slightly darker. So what you see on here is not exactly what it's going to look like when you apply it to your fabric and have it dry. So this is actually pretty close. So I'm pretty happy with how this came out. Now the next thing to do is to test it out on your stamp. And that's why I like this this little sponge brush, because it really allows me to just use up a little bit of paint, test it out. I'm gonna make sure it's all mixed in really, really well. And then I'm gonna put a little bit onto this plexiglass. And then I think it needs to be watered down just a little bit, not too much. I don't want my paint too thick that it doesn't, you know, spread around very easily. We will go over what to look for when you are applying your paint to your blocks with the roller. So that'll be my next video. We'll talk all about that. So see how I have it kind of coating my sponge, just like that. And then I'm going to gently apply it to the stamp. So it's okay, you're probably going to get a bunch of noise when you first do this because you use the sponge. So let's get one of our fabric pieces over here. Move this out of the way. Place it here, press down. Ton of noise. I'm going to have to go ahead and clean up the stamp, but you can see the color. So I'm really happy with the color. I really like how this color came out. But yes, you can see all the noise around the stamp. And that's why I said in my first video, I don't really like these brushes because it does pick up all the edging around the stamp. But you can easily go back and, you know, clean up the stamp a little bit. The roller does not really do that. I will show you that in another video. But for now, we are just simply testing our stamp to see if we even like the color. And so I'm pretty happy with this color. So now you need to make a little color stamp out of it so you have it for the future. So I just like to cut up some scraps of some nice thick white paper. This is kind of a heavier paper. It's almost like a postcard paper, maybe not quite that heavy. And I just write down, I just use a pen. I write down what I used to make this color. And that is my formula. This is my recipe. So I can recreate this same color as many times as I want. And I'm going to name it Petal. And then I'm just going to go ahead and do a nice swatch of this color, a nice big blot of color on this card so that I know exactly what it looks like. So there you have it. You have your custom color that you used to, that you were inspired. You used a petal to create this amazing color for your new block. So I hope you found this video helpful. In my next video, we're going to be talking about applying the paint to your block and then block printing it on fabric. We'll talk about layout, how you can really make a nice, very pleasing design with your block. So thank you so much, and I will see you next time.